Welcome everyone. Settle down. Class is in session at the Comic Book University. Today we're going to be discussing Doomsday. Doomsday is a character who came into creation around 1992. The writers for Doomsday used to get all together and they used to discuss every year what should we do with Superman for the year, with all the different comics. There were like three different issues of Superman coming out per month. I said, what should we do for this year? There's always the one guy in the corner who's like, let's kill him, and everybody just ha ha ha, and then they start discussing what they were going to do. Now, the Lois and Clark television series was on air at the time, and as you're going to find out, if you haven't figured out already, movies trump television, television trumps any other form of media, right? And in this particular case, the comic books. So even though comic books are the origin of Superman and so on and so forth, the fact of the matter is that if you have something on TV or in the big screen, you're going to change the comic to what happens here as opposed to vice versa. It's just the way of things, right? So Lois and Clark TV show, they were going to have Superman and Lois actually get married. First time. It never happened in the comics, never happened anywhere else. And that's what they really wanted to do in the comic book. But they said we're not allowed to because they're doing it in the TV show. And it's just going to look like we're copying, or, we can't do it this year because they need to be able to do it first. Otherwise it looks like they're copying, and they didn't really know what to do that particular year. So finally they listened to that crazy guy in the corner and they say, what if we did kill Superman? Wow. So that's actually what they did. And the way they did it was by creating a new character. They didn't use Lex Luthor. Actually, Lex Luthor was out of the picture. It was Alexander Luthor, Lex Luthor's son. Bushy, curly red hair. But they actually created a character called Doomsday to kill Superman. Now, Doomsday's power set, his most brilliant power, because he's ridiculously strong, like Superman strong. He's fast, he's quick. There is a difference between the two. He's highly impervious to pain and damage. He heals from whatever you're going to throw at him, but his biggest power, his most prevalent power, is that he has a form of adaptive evolution. Now, whatever you throw at him, if you somehow penetrate his defenses and he can't heal from it quick enough, he will develop an immunity to it. He will evolve to ignore what you just did to him. So he can never be killed, theoretically, the same way twice, right? As we'll see, beatings, you can't really evolve from a punch to the face, right? Like, haha, I am now resistant to punches to the face. No, it doesn't quite work that way unless you evolve a football helmet around your head. But anyway, so this was Doomsday's biggest ability that he can use against his enemies, namely Superman. Doomsday's creators were Dan Jurgens, Roger Stern, Brett Breeding, Jerry Orway, and Louise Simonson. Now, Doomsday's first appearance was in Man of Steel, issue number 17. It was really just a cameo. His first full appearance was in the very next issue, number 18 of Man of Steel. And they were done in 1992, November, December, respectively. The origin is actually took place after that. We didn't get Doomsday's origin. We just got this beast in the ground in this green jumpsuit with huge cables on him, keeping his one arm tied behind his back, and he's punching his way out of a casket, goes off, meets a couple of Justice Leaguers, beats the living snot out of them, including a Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, who proves completely ineffective against this thing. Eventually rips out of his suit. You realize he's got spiky protrusions all over his green skin, and he beats up Superman on the way. Comes along, they're out in the Midwest of America. They see he sees the sign for a wrestling tournament that's going to happen, or a wrestling show in Metropolis, he actually speaks the words Metropolis and starts making his way out to the big pear. I think it is the big peach. Right? It's not the big apple. That's our world. So it marches out there, gets in there, and that eventually leads to the death of Superman. Right? Afterwards, round two, the Superman / Doomsday Predator / Prey, a lot of slashes in that title, we actually find the origin of Doomsday. He was created basically by a scientist named Bertrand. Bertrand he went to Krypton, which this was, what, 250,000 years ago, during that time. Way before there were any regular humanoid creatures there, like the Kryptonians, like Superman, who we know of. It was just a really harsh planetary environment, right? And he took this humanoid creature that he created in vitro and put this infant, this little baby, on the planet Krypton's surface. It died almost instantly from the heat of the planet itself. He took the ashes and what little DNA he had in there, and through his machines, forced evolution into it. Imagine the High Evolutionary in Marvel Comics, right? Forced evolution into this, the remaining DNA, recreated the baby, put it back on the planet's surface, right? It lasted a lot longer. Pretty soon, through constant death, rebirth, wash, rinse, repeat, it could survive being on the ground there. But then pretty soon, being able to survive the ground, now you got to worry about the sun's heat and radiation. It would die that way. Wash, rinse, repeat. It would be immune to that. The weather, right? The horrible heat from just the air alone, lightning storms. Pretty soon it evolves past all that, but now there's all these different kinds of animals coming along, and they're ripping this poor baby to shreds, right? And pretty soon it's able to, through the machines, evolve past that. Pretty soon it doesn't even need the machines. It starts to evolve past even needing the machines to regenerate and to build in a natural defense towards whatever it is that you're attacking this creature with. It was originally called the Ultimate by Bertrand. So eventually it eradicates all of the hostile life forms on Krypton. In a sense, I suppose, paving the way for humanoid Kryptonians to evolve in relative safety, which was a big problem that Zod had, right? If you read the comics. So eventually, Doomsday, the Ultimate, as it's called at the time, goes and attacks and kills Bertrand, who is the biggest protagonist in his life. Forget the animals and the weather and all these crazy things. He knows, because he even though he wasn't sentient, and that's kind of a big deal, that Doomsday is not really sentient. All right, later on in an issue. As it turns out, he still is able to, his genes, his DNA remembers all, clearly because of it needs the evolutionary information, but it developed this instinct that it remembered all the pain it felt all those times that it was destroyed, and it blamed Bertrand. Rightfully so, it kills him. Bertrand was a isolationist, and he would have like a drone ship come once in a while to deliver supplies to him at Krypton. And Doomsday was able to escape on that ship. He stowed away on it, and boom, he got taken away. Now, from Krypton, eventually, maybe immediately, I don't know, he eventually gets to Byland 5, all right? This is a new planet, and Darkseid is about to get married there. And Darkseid, he's got his partner in crime, Master Mayhem is his name. Typical DC villain name, right? Clear cut. Anybody with a name like that has to be the villain. It's got to be, right? You may not have heard of Master Mayhem. It's because Doomsday, the Ultimate, killed him almost instantaneously, just tears him apart. Um, Darkseid was actually supposed to get married on that planet because he wanted that planet's resources, a chemical, a gas that would help with the resources back on Apocalypse, Darkseid's planet. Um, but the Ultimate, Doomsday, comes in and just rips the planet apart, tears everything up. The gases all over the place now. It's actually poisoning and making the planet toxic. And Darkseid has to evacuate the planet right before they're about to go toe to toe and go at it with each other. You think that would have been a really cool battle. Don't worry. That battle does happen. All right? Um, anyway, all these ships are escaping, right? All these escape pods and whatnot. They're bringing the planet's native residents and the Apocalypse residents and all the people who are attending the wedding. They're getting him out of there. So Darkseid gets out of there, and the Ultimate, Doomsday, hitches a ride, stows away on one of the ships also. Now, he goes off to Kundia, all right, this new planet called Kundia that has all these warring factions there. What happens there is all these factions come together, realizing that Doomsday is going to obliterate them all. They come together and they choose one warrior called the Cobalt. And they fashion this armor for him because they know that Cobalt's not going to defeat Doomsday, but they are imagining that he can last long enough with this specially made armor to get Doomsday off the planet. And that's exactly what happens. Tricks him onto a ship. He winds up getting killed as it's launching. Doomsday's on the ship now. The ship explodes and he gets jettisoned into space. Now, while he's off in space, tumbling around, he comes across, or this Green Lantern comes across him. The Green Lantern's name is Jaron Pell. Jean goes up to try and identify the creature. Doomsday isn't about all that, and he kills him. Just beats the living snot out of this GL. He gets the ring, realizes the kind of power that this thing has, identifies its power source as coming from Oa, and starts making its way towards Sector Zero so that it could go to Oa and destroy all that good stuff. The Guardians send their Green Lantern Corps at the time, this is a long time ago, to intercept the Ultimate. Doesn't work. 1,000 or more Green Lanterns just get completely wiped out off of the face of creation. The Guardians realize that this is no simple threat, and one of the Guardians actually goes and sacrifices himself to get rid of Doomsday and causes a rift in space. And Doomsday gets sucked through that rift, and boom, he's off now. Lots and lots of we're talking about 250,000 years of this sort of thing happening at this point. Eventually, he comes to a planet called Calitron, and while he's there, the ruling royal houses realize that this thing isn't going to go down easily, so they pool their life forces together and form this creature called the Radiant. Now, the Radiant goes and is actually able to kill Doomsday. Doomsday hasn't been killed in a really long time, right? He's killed now. This death is significant in the sense that the Caledonians, Caledonians, whatever you'd call them, they have two very distinct funerals, all right? One for heroes and one for villains. I suppose they have general funerals also, but Doomsday gets the villain one, all right? He gets bound in this green jumpsuit and his arms bound behind him. and wrapped with this very strong cable, put inside of this arc-like casket, right? That's actually kind of roomy, and jettisoned off into space. He's put in the suit and bound like that because they don't want the evil spirit. Hey, this is just, their religion, their customs. Doesn't want the evil spirit to be able to escape again in death, right? Little did they realize they don't have to worry about the spirit. They would have to worry about the regular body that they just killed, because he's coming back. And he was put in the casket and booted off into space. That casket eventually reached Earth. And while most asteroid, meteoroid impacts on Earth will cause a wide but not so deep impact, this one was, I guess, small enough, small the striking surface, the deeper the penetration, was able to actually penetrate the Earth and bury Doomsday deep within what would eventually be the Great American Midwest. And that's where it leads into, boom, the Death of Superman 4-part issues. So eventually, yes, back to those issues. Superman Volume 2, number 75. Superman and Doomsday meet. Booster Gold had given the name Doomsday. It's the first time that the Ultimate was actually called Doomsday. So Doomsday and Superman are fighting. Superman's not doing so well. Finally, he realizes here's one of the two ways that his non-sentience becomes important. Superman realized that this is a mindless killing machine. He is not even sentient, so killing him is just killing him. It would be no different than stepping on an ant, essentially. Just a really freaking strong ant that can punch you back with giant spikes that will break your impenetrable skin. Anyway, so he goes forth and with one hit, boom, kills Doomsday. Simultaneously, Doomsday, boom, gives him an uppercut that winds up killing him, and they both, I don't know, one uppercut the other. Anyway, they both drop dead. Right? Superman fares just a little bit better and is able to say, is everybody safe? And that would actually be reflected years later in Captain America's death, where Cap's laying there, he's about to die, and is everybody safe? So, really touching scenes on both ends. And I'm glad that Marvel actually replicated that death in just that one. It was the only part that was actually replicated, right? Assassin's bullet that killed him. But I really like how they gave a little bit of homage to Superman's death in that regard. Anyway, so Doomsday gets taken away, and I'm not going to get into the reign of the Supermen, which immediately followed the death of Superman, or the return of Superman, because that's another video in itself. But a new Superman shows up amongst several, and it's actually, spoilers, Hank Henshaw, the cyborg Superman. He goes in to the top secret facility that is holding and doing tests and samples and experiments on Doomsday, takes him, ties him to an asteroid, and launches him into space and says, it's on a trajectory where I've calculated it. There are no planets on the way out there. And as he throws him, a little bit later on, you see that Doomsday wakes up and he starts laughing. It's a metaphorical laugh because in sound, no one can hear you scream. Comments below. What's that from? Don't cheat and look on the internet. So he gets launched into space, and that is supposed to be the end of Doomsday. Not. Superman, Doomsday, Hunter, Prey. This is the other really big thing where we actually find out Doomsday's origin. It's also a case where Superman is now back. He's established himself. He's not red or blue anymore. He's the actual Superman, the Man of Steel we've all grown to love. and he's off having nightmares, still dreaming about Doomsday and waking up in a cold sweat. He's actually got a fear, a phobia of Doomsday. Doomsday killed him, for crying out loud. Let it go, all right? Even the Man of Steel is allowed to have a nightmare once in a while, wake up in a cold sweat. And suddenly he gets contacted by Desaad, one of Darkseid's henchmen. All right, and he says, "Hey man, there's a really big problem affecting Apocalypse, and help us, Kal-El. You're our only hope." And yeah, Desaad was not as pretty as Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher. Hey, but anyway, so Superman is able to procure the mother box and go off into Apocalypse and find that Doomsday is actually kicking some booty out there, and actually went one-on-one with Darkseid. And Darkseid's Omega beams that no one is supposed to be able to tolerate, Doomsday tolerated them and put the ever-loving beating on poor little Darkseid. Didn't finish the job, though. Oh well. Anyway, so antics ensue. All right, comic book antics ensue. They end up back on Calaton, and they realize what's going on. What do you call it? The mother box is actually with Superman, and besides providing him with information like, the Radiant was able to kill Doomsday, the mother box is also able to provide him with certain weapons. Well, Radiant was not able to defeat Doomsday again because adaptive evolution, and the weapons that mother box was able to provide Superman with weren't as effective as they could have been, but it did teach Superman what he needed to learn from them. So it would provide a sonic gun, which I think was really cool. Provide him with a sonic gun. He shot out at Doomsday. It was hurting his ears, and then he evolved right in front of him. He evolved bony protrusions around his ears that would allow him to still hear, but it would filter out ultrasonics. Okay, kind of like imagine a dog who he can still hear, but now, like with us, the dog whistles don't piss him off anymore, right? So that's pretty much what happened. He's also given like a laser sword, a little lightsaber action going. I should pull out one of my mini lightsabers. I'm not going to. That'd just be showing off. Anyway, eventually Superman gets the idea, okay, I'm going to be smart this time. I'm not going to get close to him. Doesn't work. Goes up and, Destro from G.I. Joe fires off one of his bony protrusions into a lanyard that actually penetrates Superman's skin, and kind of like, Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, get over here, pulls him down, beats the crap out of him, breaks one of Superman's arms. That was cool, because Superman says something that, if you guys remember my conversation with Lewis, the leader of the Geek Fortress, just earlier on in the week, I mentioned my most, WTF moment was Superman says, he broke my arm. I didn't think my bones could ever be broken. Yeah, and it's like, whoa, nice. Way to really go into this, Eventually, Superman is I really want you to read the Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey. Go out, get the trade paperback, subscribe to the DC Comics app, whatever it takes, borrow it from a friend, whatever. It's a great read. You're not going to be disappointed in this comic series, this miniseries. Eventually, Superman figures the only thing that Doomsday's not going to be able to evolve from is entropy itself. So he uses a mini time machine and hey man, it's comics. Throws him to the end of time, where there's no way for Doomsday to escape after that. I disagree. I think that he'd be able to escape from something like that without Brainiac's help, but one of Brainiac's lackeys does eventually get him in a less than awesome storyline. Anyway, Lots of other storylines have come up with Doomsday. There's only one worth really good mention afterwards, and it's the second part of the non-sentience thing, where eventually Doomsday becomes sentient. He acknowledges, he's able to realize, think of Descartes, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. He's able to think for himself. He's able to evolve, I guess, beyond being just a mindless beast, and he realizes that he is alive. Kind of like, I guess, any big cat or mammal, out in the wilderness. He knows he exists, he doesn't want to die, he's going to fight to survive, right? Uh, Superman confronts him again, and this is in Superman Volume 2, number 175. This is exactly 100 issues after the death of Superman, right? The one where he actually got killed. So this was in memoriam. This was considered the big rematch, right? And the decisive battle between both. And evolution can make you weaker. It can make you weaker. It's all just a form of mutation, right? And sometimes mutations will help you in one way but hinder you in another way. So this was actually good. I liked this idea, even though it shouldn't have really happened. Anyway, it's the idea that Doomsday is now self-aware. He not only remembers all that pain, but now he fears dying again. So, very cool. The coolest part of this issue, this rematch, was actually just in Superman beating the crap out of Doomsday. He says, it's different. Not verbatim, but to paraphrase, he says, things are different now, aren't they? And you feel it. You can think for yourself. You know what's about to happen. And even though you have the power to fight me, you're a little bit slower. You're second guessing yourself. You're defeating yourself. I don't even need to defeat you necessarily. You're afraid. And I want you to know right now that you will never, ever hurt me again. And Superman is invincible, right? And one of the things that I love about Superman, to get slightly off topic, is that seeing as he is essentially invincible, you can focus more on the emotion that he feels and the conundrums that he feels, that you can't just punch your way out of everything, even though that is how he usually gets out of things, right? Either heat vision, cold breath, or it punches his way out of something. But once in a while, he's got to think his way out of something. Not nearly on the scale that Batman does, but he's gotta. And this is just one of those kind of things that it was good, because one of the big problems that Superman was facing was these nightmares. That it would have been cool if all the writers for the past 100 issues, it's 12, 24, 36, 40, 60, 72, 84, 96, so 8.5 years. Over 8.5 years, it would have been nice if once a year or so they'd have thrown in, oh, hey, look, he just woke up in a cold sweat. He was afraid of, he had a nightmare of Doomsday punching him in the face, and killing him. That would have been great if just once in a while they could have reminded us, okay, of that. But this was still pretty good, because it's the idea that Superman needed to do this for himself, right? He needed to beat Doomsday for himself so that he wouldn't have these, let's imagine them as nightmares, all right? So that Superman could get over himself, get over his fears in a way, and put those fears into this newly sentient Doomsday. So I like that. I like that ending. I thought it was good, and it was for me, it was a very good closing point. Resolved a lot of issues, closed a couple doors, right? Doomsday's come back several more times. The ways that Superman has defeated him, some were pretty cool, like 4 teleportation devices on the moon that kept teleporting him back and back and back, and he was never able to materialize more than 25% at any given moment. That was pretty cool. It was pretty nifty, It was overcome pretty easily. Manchester Black. Watch the animated movie Superman and the Elite for one of the best Superman movies you'll ever come across. But anyway, and like I said, some not so brilliant ideas of how to defeat Doomsday. Anyway, they basically just kept on making him weaker. They kept on nerfing him. And if you play World of Warcraft, you know what the term nerfing is. If you don't, imagine that I have a Louisville Slugger baseball bat, and I'm beating you with the baseball bat. And I get so good at beating you with this baseball bat that the devs, the developers, come along and say, okay, that's great. You keep the baseball bat, but not that one. We're going to give you this baseball bat made out of Nerf. And now I've got to try and find a way to kill them with a Nerf baseball bat. So you're saying, he's hitting me, but it's not so bad anymore. It's Nerf. It stings a little, but I'll get over it and I can fight back. And thanks. So they just kept on nerfing Doomsday to the point that he wasn't really Doomsday-ish anymore. And the biggest disappointment that I came across was in the New 52. All right, let me give you this example right now. To me, the three most powerful incarnations of Superman go in this order. The most powerful, Superboy Prime. Not this one, but Superboy Prime, all right? 2, pre-crisis Superman. Oh my God, could you imagine a pre-crisis Doomsday? Dear God! And then, New 52 Superman, all right? Hey, he wasn't the smartest cookie in the cookie jar, all right? Up here, he was a couple ants short of a picnic. That's fine, without, Batman sitting there holding his hand and saying, okay, this is the plan. And now, that I gave the plan to everybody else. Now for you, I know you're special, so I'll put it into baby words and draw it with crayons. That's really how I felt about New 52 Superman, all right? I'm, rest in peace, I suppose, but yeah, I'm really glad that he's out of the picture now because he was uber strong, but man, he was dumber than a bag of hammers. So, disagree in the comments. I don't disable the comments. By all means, disagree with me, But anyway, easily, in my opinion, third most powerful incarnation of Superman. And now here it is, New 52. Doomsday is coming back. And he's heralded. Like, Doomsday's defeated a version of you before. He's killed a version of you before. What? And the skies will turn red, they will darken, and Doomsday will be upon us, and he'll kill you again. It's like, nah, I got this. It's like, no, you don't. I don't think you understand. And here's the kicker. Here's the build-up. That had me, woohoo, pumped for joy. The Doomsday who killed you before was just a pupa. It was in the baby stages, right? It was like a maggot. And this is a fully formed Doomsday. Okay, the Doomsday you were fighting before, it said something. I'm going on a tangent here. I'm making this part up, but the Doomsday you fought before growled at you. And if you translated that, it actually said in its own language, this isn't even my final form. And now this is its final form. It's going to kick your sorry butt all across the cosmos and destroy everything. Yeah, Antics ensued. Wonder Woman got her arm broken. Kind of cool. What do you call it? Brought him to Venus. He teleported back through the Phantom Zone thing. Antics ensued. Okay? And eventually Superman just said, hey, it's not sentient. There we go again. That's original. And it's going to keep on killing things until screw it. It runs up, rips the thing in half. I guess it didn't involve past being ripped in half. You'd figure, right? Anyway, I thought this was going to be a really amazing battle. I thought this was going to be something like several issues long. All right? I've got up on my wall here the Mighty Thor, issue number 380, his battle with Jormungand. I'm going to go over that issue one of these days. Every single page in there is a splash page. There are no panels in that comic. Every page is a splash page. I expected this battle to be on that level, where there's just splash pages from beginning to end. That great of a comic, and maybe even a double-sized issue, all right? Just runs up and rips the guy in half. That's it. Done with Doomsday. He was supposed to be something special. You nerfed him beyond belief. Superman just inhales cocaine spore version of Doomsday. No mirror, no $100 bill, nothing. Just snorts him up, freebases him, and becomes Doomsday, right? So that he could defeat Brainiac. and then he goes through a black hole and gets rid of the Doomsday infection, right? I didn't know that's how it's DC comic book physics, whatever. Anyway, so what that means is, what I just explained to you is that Doomsday wasn't even the plot. He was the subplot, right? Superman had to defeat Doomsday so that he could defeat the greater menace, Brainiac. All right? Let me tell you, when Doomsday was first created, he was the most effective Superman villain ever because he succeeded where no one else did. He killed Superman. Lex didn't do that. Zod didn't do that. Brainiac didn't do that. I've got birds outside my window. It's kind of freaky. Anyway, none of his other villains were ever really able to do that. Doomsday shows up on the picture. It's DC's version of the Incredible Hulk, and he beats the snot, literally, out of Superman and kills him. Wow. Everybody was afraid of Doomsday, right? We're wearing our little black bands with the red S on it, you know, and the covered Superman number 75. Yeah, man. We were all afraid of Doomsday, right? And when Doomsday came back in Hunter Prey, it was a big deal. And then each successive story got just a little bit less believable, a little less real, a little more ridiculous, and a little less threatening, you know? To the point where I don't know what they're going to do at this point. But Doomsday is not what he used to be. And that's really sad. That's really sad to me. But it is what it is.